Today we're making butter tarts. Hi everyone, welcome to Black Cat Kitchen. I hope you're doing well. Today we're making that Canadian classic, the butter tart. These perfect individual little treats are so delicious. They have a gooey maple syrupy filling in the center, and the best is when it just runs down your chin. Now it's hotly debated whether you should have raisins or nuts or just plain butter tarts. Today I'll show you the plain ones, but if you're going to add raisins, just don't tell me about it. We're making these in celebration of Canada Day on July 1st. Now being an expat here in the UK, we've got a little community of Canadians that come together on Facebook and a lot of times in person when we're allowed, and we love sharing our favorite Canadian recipes. This one is always a hit. Let's get started. See the description below for a list of ingredients. Let's start by preparing our pastry. This pastry is slightly untraditional in that we use sour cream. The sour cream acts as the acid to really make sure your pastry is nice and fluffy, has those nice layers, those buttery layers that you want when you're biting into it, but it also gives it a robustness to hold in all of that gooey filling. Into our bowl goes 170 grams of flour and 1 gram of salt. We're just going to whisk those together so all of the salt gets incorporated. And now we're going to add in our lard and our butter. Now you can use just butter here if you'd like, but I really like the texture that the lard gives to it. So 57 grams of each. And you want to make sure this is as cold as possible. That's what gives your pastry the flaky layers. So you can use a pastry cutter or 2 knives here if you'd like, but really we're just looking for a pea-sized texture to bring this all together, and I just like to use my hands. So just rub it together in your fingers so some of that flour begins to absorb that butter and the lard. So this is the texture you're looking for, kind of like a breadcrumby, and you can still have a few of the larger pieces of butter, but you don't want to have too many of those because it will cause your pastry to melt. Start by adding 1 tablespoon of ice water to our sour cream. This just loosens it up a little bit and makes it easier to incorporate into our flour mix. And then we can add an additional tablespoon if we feel it needs it after. Now that all of that water is mixed in, we're going to pour it into our pastry. So we're just going to start to combine this until it comes into a shaggy dough. We can add a little bit more of that ice water as we need it. And the ice water helps to keep the butter in its nice crumbly form. I find the best way to bring pastry together without overmixing it is just at the end, while it's still a little bit crumbly, just pour it onto some cling film and use the cling film to bring it together. You can see that's starting to come together into cohesive dough. Just get all of those little craggy edges to become a little bit smoother, and then we're going to pop it in the fridge for 30 minutes.
A few moments later.
We're just going to dust our work surface with a little bit of flour so our pastry doesn't stick. Now let's roll this out until it's about 3 millimeters thick. And I like to move my pastry around a little bit. I'm actually going to put a little bit of flour on the top there, just so we don't get any stickage. That's the technical term, stickage. I've taken my 10 centimeter ring cutter and I'm just going to dip it in some flour and start cutting our tart shells. And we're just going to transfer our dough circles into our muffin cups. So you'll just want to gently start pressing it down, allowing those edges to just fold in slightly. I quite like when they have a little bit of a ruffle around the edge. I think it gives it a nice rustic traditional look, so I don't mind those little bits, but if you want them to be absolutely perfect, you can certainly press those out a little bit. Here's a little trick when you're working with pastry. I like to take the last bit of leftover pastry and just use it to make sure you've pressed that pastry right into the casing. This makes sure you don't get any sort of nail pocks in there, and it's just a little bit more of a delicate way to press it down. This recipe makes 12 butter tarts. We're going to put our casings back into the fridge so they get nice and firm before we bake them. Let's preheat our oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And now we can get started on our mapley butter tart filling. So we're going to mix together 150 grams of brown sugar, 2 grams of salt, 118 milliliters of really good quality real maple syrup, 76 grams of melted butter, 2 eggs, and 1 tablespoon, about 15 milliliters of apple cider vinegar. That just helps to set the whole center. And we're just going to whisk this all together. So that's all done, ready for our chilled cases. Now that our pastry cases are nice and chilled, we're going to put about 1/4 cup of the filling into each case. Now's a great time if you want to add raisins or pecans or walnuts. Just sprinkle a few in each of your little cases. These go into the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. We're going to let these cool for about 20 minutes in the muffin tins, and then we'll take them out and cool them on a cooling rack. But here's a bakery secret for you. If you have a big freezer that you can put this tray in, put them in straight from the oven. Make sure you've got some protective layers in there so you don't ruin your freezer, but that will make sure that you have that gooey, runny center that we all love in a butter tart. It instantly transports me home. You've got that gorgeous sour cream pastry that really holds up to that filling. And the filling, it's like maple goodness all at once. It's the perfect celebration of Canada. The filling is still gooey and soft, a little bit set so that it doesn't completely run everywhere when you cut it open. And it just has this gorgeous silky texture that the apple cider vinegar adds to it just to really mellow it out. It's not too sweet. We added that little bit of salt and the vinegar really does balance it. If you've never had a butter tart before, why not join us in our Canada Day celebrations and have one with us? Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.